News, Pretoria.
All right, this late afternoon, we are coming to you live from the IEC Results Operation Centre, or the ROC as it's known, at the Pretoria Show Grounds. Our colleague Criselda Lewis standing by. Chris, give us an idea of the sense of the action, if there's any, there at the ROC.
A very good afternoon to you, Tepiso, as well as Francis. In the next couple of days, we're expecting the ROC here to be a hive of activity. Political parties, of course, will be monitoring these screens right here behind me as those results trickle in. Of course, South Africa, 3 days away from that all-crucial local government election. And political parties, of course, Francis and Tepiso, a last-minute push to try and get millions of South Africans to put their X next to them. Of course, while all that is taking place, we certainly see in and around this area there is quite a police presence coming into the Tshwane area. And of course, you would know that a number of experts would often look at the predictions of what is likely to come out of South Africa's local government elections. The CSIR has been one of those organizations. They don't necessarily predict what's going to happen before the election. So when about 5% of that vote is in, that's when the CSIR is able to basically look at what's coming in and give a slight prediction of possibly what the outcome may look like. Let's bring in the CSIR now. Dr. Dumisani joins me now from the CSIR. Dr. Dumisa, thank you very much indeed for making your time here to the ROC. I mean, how does this modelling work? Over the years, we've sit and watched you as you try to predict what the election outcome will look like. Talk to us a bit about the modelling first.
Okay. Well, the modeling uses a technique called clustering. So it takes results from the previous election and we study those results and see the voting districts, how they voted, what the profile of the voting is in terms of percentages for parties, etc. And then those that are similar, voting districts that are similar, are grouped into the same cluster. And then we create various clusters according to similarity. Turns out that 20 appears to be the magic number in terms of the number of clusters that we have. Once we've clustered those voting districts based on previous results, we discard the previous results and wait now for the counting of the votes in the current election to begin. Yeah. And once we get results coming in, we use those results for early voting from early voting districts counted to project into or to forecast what the outcome is going to be at the end.
Dr. Tengo, how accurate is this stuff?
Crystal, the accuracy, the model has performed very well over the years. As you may know, we started as a CSIR doing this in 1999 and 2000. It was with the IEC at the time because they wanted to see how to detect any possible irregularities. But then it became clear that you could use this to also predict what the outcomes are. We then partnered with the SABC since 2004. And all the elections since that time, we've been doing that. Now, the accuracy is performed very well. For national elections, with 5% of the votes counted, we usually hover at about 1% to at most 2% for the bigger parties. And with the smaller parties, it becomes a bit more difficult.
Yeah. But the prediction, I guess, or projection for local government elections and national elections would then differ, also based on when you begin that prediction in terms of the percentage of votes that are already in. Talk us a bit through that.
Okay, that's a very good question. So the local government elections, how we do this is that we don't do it nationally, the clustering of voting districts. We do it per province. So 20 for province 1 up to 9. Once we have those, the number, as you can imagine, that you have in each province is much smaller than you would have in a national election. That leads to differences in the accuracy and prediction depending on is it 5%, 10% or 20% counted. Yeah. So at national, with about 5% of the votes counted, it's between 1 and 2%. And then at provincial, no rather, the local government elections, we need about 10, 15, in some instances about 20% counted to get a better sense of where things are going to go.
Yeah.
So we say that at that time the model stabilizes and it stays stable up until the end.
When does the public's interest become more intense? I mean, after those, voting stations have closed, once the counting begins, it's not, I guess, just political parties that are sitting on the edge of their seats, but also those who've gone out to go and vote to see if the person that they've chosen would be able to better service delivery, I guess, in their area. When do you gauge that intense public scrutiny or interest?
Yeah. So from history, we've learned that the most intense interest comes immediately after voting stations have closed and the counting begins. And people now wonder who is going to come out on top. So a few hours thereafter, IEC releases the results, the early counting results, and maybe around 3, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., the morning shows, etc. That's when people really want to hear and know where are we, and that's when the model is most useful in that its predictions tell us already then the likelihood of what the outcome is going to be.
There's some restrictions, though, on your part, in terms of what you can comment on. While the results themselves may trickle in, you can't really say, as the CSIR, this political party is in the lead. You've got to be seen to be just speaking to the numbers as they come in. Talk to us a bit about how difficult that is, because I'm sure that's reserved, of course, I guess, for political analysts that contracted with the SABC to do that job.
Yes. In fact, as the CSIR, we're not there to do political analysis. We only do number crunching based on the real results that have come through and project to the end. So we don't make a reflection on, say, why one party A has increased its support and why party B has decreased its support. The political analysts that you normally interview would be the ones that are interested in getting these results, looking at them and deciding, it might be influenced by factor A or factor B, and then tell the public, this is what we think affected the outcome. So we normally don't make any political, but sometimes people try to draw us into it. We try to stay away from that as well.
Yeah. You spoke about the different percentages that you look at, in particular when you look at projections for local government elections versus the national elections. What happens in a case then, I guess, where, like in the city of Johannesburg, due to, the big numbers in a metro like this, where that takes quite long to come in? How are you able to piece together, what's coming in versus the accuracy of where potentially the results would go?
So the big metros are the ones that actually make this type of prediction a useful prediction for the public, in that it takes a long time for the counting to be done and to be completed. But as the day goes by, so in this case it's going to be, we vote on Monday, on Tuesday the results come out. As the days go by, we get more results trickling in, and with this model we're then able to project to the end. I think the smaller, for example, voting districts would be the ones that come in very early. Now the way the model works is also that the clusters that we have and the voting districts that they have membership in, those voting districts also have what we call membership in other clusters as well, depending on how similar or dissimilar they are. Now, the results that come in can then be projected to also make some kind of prediction, not only in the current cluster that the group is in, also in other clusters. And we saw this happen with eThekwini in 2016, when the elections, or rather the results, were only released with the 70% of the votes counted. And right from the beginning, the model was able to predict with no results having been brought in.
What happens when there's a spanner in the works? I see the IEC here is also, on standby in the event that there's a dispute of some sort that might take place. Speaking to the IEC a bit earlier on this week, they indicated, of course, they're not the ones there that are supposed to declare those results. The IEC here with the legal department, in the event that something happens, does that put a spanner in the works of some of your predictions in the event if there's some contestation about results that are coming from some area? Does that change things a bit for you as the CSIR, or do you have to wait?
So the example I gave you just now of eThekwini in 2016 is exactly the situation you're describing, where no results were released at all. I think it was until 2 p.m. on the Thursday when we had voted on the Wednesday. And I'm not sure about the exact reasons of why, but those issues of declaration of disputes, of checking irregularities are likely the ones that hold back the release of the results until such time that the IEC feels comfortable that all processes and procedures have been followed. But then that holds back some results. And the model, therefore, becomes useful in that with other results having come in, we're able to project as we did with the eThekwini, and it actually surprised even us because it wasn't an expected thing, it just happened, but the model did very well.
Are you able to comment on, obviously with the model, you're able to see where significant changes are dependent or in comparison to a previous election? Are you at all able to gauge, as the CSIR, what would be the contributing factors towards some of those issues? Is the model able to do that? Despite the service delivery issues that communities speak about, are you able to, as the CSIR, I guess maybe even at a later stage, indicate what could have led to certain changes wherever they are?
Okay, so the CSR does do some post-election analysis, etc. However, as I indicated earlier, the analysis that we do is just based purely on numbers. What were the trends? What were the changes from previous to current, or trends from many other elections before? Now, the people that actually do the assigning reasons as to why the change happened, as we talked earlier, the political analysts. So they're the ones who will say maybe service delivery or maybe issues of, I don't know.
Electricity, water, whatever it is.
Yes, this is it. All those matters, they come into play and can be ascribed by the political analysts. We just do the numbers and show the changes and so on and so forth.
Dr. Dumisa, thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm just going to take our viewers through exactly where we are. And over the next couple of days, my colleagues have been stationed here. Over the past couple of days, the SABC has been setting up all of its resources here. It's a bit dull here at the moment, and I presume over the next couple of days it's really going to be a hive of activity here. You would see this is where some of the agents themselves would sit at this particular point. Towards that direction is where also the IEC has also set up part of its resource there. Take a look here. This is what the SABC has set up. That's the SABC right there. Quite a huge studio that has been set up. A number of cameras. There's one just hovering right on top of me, Francis and Sepiso. All resources certainly have been put in to make sure that we're able to continue to bolster our coverage of this local government election. The run-up to it, we've got so many boots on the ground covering several areas around South Africa. In the most remote areas, we've got our reporters who are also going to be stationed there. In fact, from tomorrow, I'm going to have my boots on the ground. You'd know, of course, as you indicated in your first story there, that President Cyril Ramaphosa authorizing 10,000 soldiers to be deployed to these voting stations around the areas. I understand that deployment is going to be taking place from Saturday. That's quite crucial, in particular, because if you ask around what is taking place at this particular time, whether some of the service delivery concerns that we've been covering quite widely as the SABC, whether there's a semblance of communities that will really feel aggrieved, some indicating over the past couple of weeks that they're not going out to go and vote, feeling quite aggrieved over a lack of services in that area. If we move towards this particular direction, I'm hoping my colleague is not going to trip over where he is at the moment. Come with me. This is where the political parties are stationed. So right in front of this leaderboard, which will light up over the next couple of days, this is where the political parties, you've got your FF+, the UDM, PAC, NFP, ANC, Democratic Alliance, COPE, all these political parties. And very difficult, I must say, Tepiso, as well as Francis, that this local government election taking place at a very difficult time where I see quite a number of things pertaining to social distancing here, an election that is taking place during COVID-19. The global pandemic is still with us. South Africa is not out of the woods as yet, you'd see. Within this particular centre, we're not allowed to take off our masks as well, everyone trying to be safe. But most crucially, 3 days to South Africa's local government election, millions of South Africans will go out to go and vote, while political parties over the past couple of weeks have been trying to woo South Africans to put that cross in front of them come the 1st of November on Monday. South Africans will go out and vote, but absolutely that decision, all of it, will come from here at the Rock in Tshwane. That leaderboard over the next couple of days will light up. I think that's where I'm going to leave it from the Rock here in Tshwane. Back to you in studio, Tepiso, as well as Francis.
Thank you, Crisalda, our colleague Crisalda Lewis at the Rock Centre, giving us a sense of what's likely to happen. And as she said, nothing happening now, but just give it a couple of more days. And,
it looks really dead, and then you know what it's like. You experience the contrast. Yeah, it really comes alive, especially when all the parties descend and start looking at that board. Hopefully, let's take a short break. Lots more to come on The Full View.